Good day, everybody. I want to believe you can all hear me. If you can hear me, please just signify in the chat that you can hear me. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat, or maybe as reaction, if you can hear me. Okay, I can see that. Thank you so much for joining from wherever you're joining from. You're currently in the room where we'll be discussing about the research, African circular economy research, and you are in the right room. And I want you to know that we are prepared to receive you, to give you the insight that you are expecting, but we need to give a little bit more time. In 2 minutes, we're going to start because we need to give some time for other people to join in. So we're going to start in 2 minutes. Please, I'll mute my mic now, and in 2 minutes, we're going to start. Thank you so much for joining. If you're just entering the room, you're welcome to the Local Research and Development webinar, which is organized by the Circular Economy Innovation Partnership. I would start the meeting now. Basically, you've registered, and I'm sure that you have certain expectations. I'm sure that all our speakers are qualified speakers that we have on the panel would do justice to some of the questions that you would have in your mind. I would start by thanking you for joining. Please a moment. Yes. I welcome you once again to the Circular Economy Entrepreneurship in Africa webinar series. If you can hear me, can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your feedback. So you're welcome to the Circular Economy Entrepreneurship in Africa webinar series. My name is Obalua Dairo, and I'll be your host. Special thanks to all the people who have attended all the sessions in the series. Of course, you know that this is the 4th session in this 6-part series. The general goal of this webinar series has been to examine our roles as a community of incubators, investors, researchers, of course, entrepreneurs as well, which I believe many of you are. So just to know and what we can do better for the progress of circular economy. So you understand the goal of this particular series. And of course, this series is in partnership with African Circular Economy Network, ASEN Foundation, then also the Footprints Africa and the Netherlands Consulate in Nigeria. So we have this particular topic before us, which is building, which is local research and development, strengthening connections between business and business. So we have, yes, sorry about that. So why are we having this particular conversation? Why are we having this particular conversation? We know the importance of research, and we know the importance of research to development. Basically, in circular economy, we know that there is need for us to collaborate. There's need for collaborations. And then, of course, when we talk about collaboration, it sounds like one word that is vague sometimes, because sometimes you don't know how to even go about this particular collaboration that we are talking about. So the essence of this particular topic, because we're talking about research, we know that the learning institutions are where research is mostly conducted. And then, of course, you have businesses who need to leverage on R&D to grow, to develop, to pivot, to do many things across their growth process. And so if there is going to be so much importance in local research and development, in research and development, then we have to find a way as entrepreneurs to go to those places where this research is done, where they have this strength. So if there's a strength in the learning institutions, and we are business owners, we are entrepreneurs, how do we leverage these people that we have, these learning institutions that we have in our environment, in our different environments? How do we leverage on this, their own strength, to also ensure that we get to learn from them, get to drink from their wealth of knowledge, and then, of course, get to collaborate so that we are also getting involved in research. So we have, of course, we have our panelists, which you probably have seen on our social media. We have 3 people on our panel. I'm going to be projecting their profile now, and I'm going to be, sorry, a moment. One, apologies. Yes. The first person on our panel is David Ewusi-Mensah. David Ewusi-Mensah is an environmental engineer and consultant specialized in R&D, water supply engineering, sustainability, and circular economy consulting, and of course, project management as well. He has lived and worked with grassroots, private and governmental stakeholders in Asia, Europe, Central America, and across Africa. He is a co-founder of Eco Ahmed Solutions Limited, a leading environmental consulting and R&D company in Ghana, and currently a final year PhD research candidate specializing in environmental engineering. So you can see how valuable this particular panelist would be to this conversation. So I'll move to the next person, who is Victor Boy-Komolafe. He's the founder at Jivo. JIVO, when I discovered this, I was very, very happy because I didn't know the meaning of JIVO before. When I checked their website one time, I saw that the meaning of JIVO is garbage in, value out. And so he's the director at Capture Solutions. And then, of course, he's an ACCA chartered accountant, a graduate of accounting and finance from the University of Liverpool, and a KPMG alumni with 15 years of extensive experience in finance, sustainability, product development, manufacturing, and tech solutions. He's an entrepreneur. He's an impact entrepreneur. He's passionate about utilizing technology to make the world a sustainable, fairer, and healthier place to live in. His work on sustainability and circularity in Nigeria has been recognized by major publications, including BBC, CNN, Bella Nigeria, the UK Foreign Office, and the World Circular Economy Forum plus Climate. So Victor Komolafe is also one of our panelists, and you get to hear from him shortly. And the last person on our panel is Babatunde Adebayo. Babatunde Adebayo is a social entrepreneur. He's a social entrepreneur, a circular economy player, an SDG advocate, a founder and CEO of Eco Circular Solutions Limited. He's a social enterprise leveraging ways to alleviate poverty, enabling children access to education, and creating employment opportunities through circular economy model and climate action advocacy for the purpose of tackling environmental pollution and offer support for people and the planet. His enterprise is well known and recognized for recycling waste into low-cost, eco-friendly building and construction materials. So we have David, we have Victor, and we have Babatunde on our panel. I want us to do something. I want us to give, oh yes, I can see people in the chat already giving us some reaction, and that's what I want us to have. One thing I want us to do is to make this as interactive as possible, and what will make it interactive is the fact that as we are going through this panel session, we are dropping our thoughts, we're dropping our questions in the chat box, so that of course I'll see it, and then of course I'll get to also impute your contribution into this conversation. So, and also if you would like to say something, you can as well just signify that by raising your hand. You can use the raise hand button when it's time for us to get feedback from the audience. So having said that, I want us to get set for the next part, which is the critical section of this particular webinar, which is where we discuss the tip. Now, how did we arrive at these tips that we're going to be examining shortly? Basically, some of us who are in this room took part in a survey that we conducted, which was basically to understand, to get to hear from entrepreneurs how research has impacted their businesses, how they have been able to leverage on research to either develop their products, to either scale their products, and many other things that you could use research for in your business. And we got some very interesting feedback, which we have incorporated, brought together, and then of course made it into some of these tips, which you're going to be seeing shortly, and which our speakers are going to also be talking about, giving more practical examples to buttress some of these tips. So having said that, I'm going to project my screen to show you so that you can also read along what these tips are. Yep. Sorry. Okay. So I believe you can see my screen. Yes. So we have our top tips. The first tip here, which is the number 7 tip, is that you should consider the aspects of your product or business that can be improved through research. Is it the model? Is it the processes? Is it the materials? or the user experience? So there's a question that follows this, which is because we want to get as practical as possible with this particular session. Sorry. Sorry. Yes. So we have this question, which is an offshoot of this tip that I just read out. Let me go back to the tip again and read it once more. So consider the aspect of your product or business that can be improved through research, model, processes, materials, user experiences. Now, the question that follows is, in what practical ways can a business owner determine or discover the aspects of a product that needs research? And how can research facilitate business growth? I know that all our panelists are ready, and I would like to, the first question would go to Victor. Victor, I want you to react to this question. What are the practical ways that a business owner would be able to discover aspects of the product that needs research, and how can research facilitate business growth? Let's start with Victor.
Okay. Hi everyone. Good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Yeah, glad to be here. In answering this question, I think very easily, something I would highlight is this, or the role of the SDGs in creating solutions, right? So it's societal development goals. There's about 17 of them. And again, I just always try to encourage businesses to identify their strengths along those 17. Now, typically, when you're working with, whether academia or other key stakeholders, especially in the DFI, space, or in this case, academia or universities, they are very keen on structure. And one of the major ways you can structure those conversations is having those conversations around the SDGs. So to answer this question, if you have your organization structured in a way where you understand the SDGs you're dealing with and you're affecting directly and indirectly, then it's an easier, you can then narrow down or discover the part of your business that aligns with research goals of these other stakeholders.
Would you like to react to the second question, which is basically around how research can facilitate business growth as well?
Oh, okay, yeah. This I could talk about this for forever. By the way, I married a market researcher, right? And this is so I am biased about research, in different ways, and I have seen it work. I would say, for example, I guess a few of us in this group are Nigerian, right? I know firsthand of are familiar with the Nigerian market. I know firsthand of a drinks company, they're called Pullman Juice. I don't know if you remember them. They were very popular, 20 years ago when we were growing up. I would say they were bigger than Chivita, perhaps. But a few years ago, Chivita got bought by one of the largest multinationals, right? And I know firsthand the kind of investment Chivita was making in research, So I have seen, of course, also I am an accountant, I work in KPMG. And so I have seen that the way or the difference many times between success and failure is information. And that's kind of what research brings. So again, and that can be in a physical product, that can be in a digital product, that can be in a process. Research helps you understand things that your competitors can't figure out.
Thank you so much. I think one tip that we did not have in the slide is the fact that if you are yet to marry, the opportunity is that one of the good things you can do is to marry a researcher as an entrepreneur, but that is not in the slide. I would like to ask David as well. David, you've done so much in the area of research. You've practicalized research in that sense. So when I ask you, the experience to give. So I want you to share with us some of your experience in terms of even how you have been able to use research to improve your own processes as an entrepreneur.
Okay, thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, the same drill. Super excited to be here, and so thank you so much for this question. Actually, I think that research does, and it does have a very big role to play when it comes to sort of transforming ideas into businesses. Normally, it doesn't matter which background you're from, whether you're in the sciences, engineering, socials, or whatever thing, a medical school or whatever it is. I think the first stop for anyone who wants to start this is to go through the sort of, in the system of circular economy and sustainability, we have what we call the circular business module canvas, right? It has a set of criteria that you will have to probably go through step by step, ask you a minimum, the basic questions that you need to sort of test or assess your idea, whether it's first sustainable, it's marketable, and also just as Victor mentioned, that it aligns with the SDGs and all the targets that we are hoping to do. So if you go through it and at a point you realize that, of course, it makes you understand certain things like maybe not every idea at a certain level could be marketable, could be sustainable, or could maybe win the eyes of clients. And so whilst you're sort of trying to shape your idea into a marketable and also a business process, these questions will help you to sort of understand, number one, how feasible the idea is, how circular the idea is, how desirable it is, how sustainable in terms of environment, finance, and social capital, and of course, how viable it could be in terms of its impact in the world. So these are very necessary things that I think that at least everyone who is trying to convert the idea or doing research could sort of know of. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question when you mentioned the business model, and you mentioned the business model canvas. A lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs around our space, they have such challenge when it comes to their business model, So what would you advise in terms of business model development for entrepreneurs, especially circular entrepreneurs? What would you advise for? What would your advice be to someone who is having such challenge in terms of business model development?
Yeah, I think mostly there are a lot of communities where you can sort of engage yourself to ask questions and engage people who are experts and know how these processes go, and they could help you and direct you. Moreover, there are a lot of resources online. There are different platforms. I could share a couple of them in the chats and links where you could sort of go in there and check the questions that they will ask you, very basic questions that you have to answer, and you could sort of consult someone to also review and check if criticize some of the things that you have done just to make sure you're on the right path. But no matter your background, these are very easygoing platforms or questions that you could sort of go through to just shape your idea or anything that you're working on.
Yeah, I'm in the low day.
There's someone whose background noise is interrupting, so maybe you can just mute. Okay, let's move ahead. The next tip I'll read. So it says, if your product or launch has failed, consider how you can turn this problem into a research question that will help you better reach target clients and users. Explore opportunities for joint research projects with universities where industry challenges can be addressed by academic research and development. I want us to look at this critically. We are talking about exploring opportunities for joint research projects with universities where industry challenges can be addressed by academic research and development. Now, a question follows. It says, how can a problem be turned into research question? Can a business conduct a joint research with university? How can the conversation start? So I think I would put the question to Babatunde. Babatunde, are you there?
Thank you very much, Mr. Oba. I'm here.
Okay, so the question is, how can a business owner, how can an entrepreneur turn a problem into a research question? And of course, how do you start the conversation with universities? I know some people in the room would like to know how that can go.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I believe you have a great day, and I thank my co-panelists and as such the organizers. My name is Babatunde Adebayo. Thank you for the questions. From what have been said earlier in terms of research to know which part of our product require that we conduct a research, and as such, that leads to this very question. The very first question you ask is the first thing to do as a business owner or even as an entrepreneur. You have to, inside of you, determine which of your activities. I will not use the word product this time around, permit me. I will say which of the activities in your organizations, in your startup, that requires research. That should be the first thing. It might be your product, it might be the customer service, it might be the persona, it might even be the service you are rendering, not necessarily being a product. But all these lie down in getting the feedback, and as such, after which you have been able to establish that very activities that require research. So how do you now come by these very questions to link up with a research institute, with a university to get to know? So practically, the first thing I will say from my own experience is you cannot be writing to universities. If I'll come into the context of Nigeria per se, are you doing a paperwork of writing through maybe the registrar, trying to tell them you are trying to fix up an appointment with the pharmaceutical department in their institution to conduct a research? I will say, if you are to go practically, the conversation should start by you going to that department yourself. Going to that department, let them know the exact problem you wanted to solve. For instance, if you are to be a product now, and you are in the pharmaceutical industry, you just discover maybe you have a kind of a sample that you extracted from a plant, and you believe from traditional use, they have been using such a concoction, let me use the word concoction, for treating malaria, for instance. And you feel like as an elite and as an entrepreneur, you want to take it to the next level. You cannot get NAFDAC approval by saying you have a concoction that heals malaria. So, but you know that you have been using it and people have been responding. So indirectly, we have conducted a research on your own, which is what we call market research. You have seen that this thing is there. They are using it. The market is willing. Then the next step is, okay, how could I modernize it? Then you can approach their department seeking to know information. Okay, that particular plant they are using, what exactly are those ingredients inside those plant extracts that are active ingredients that are helping in healing malaria? I think that's what the first thing you need to do. So when you get to that department, they have the people in that specialization. Good for you. Then the person can now give a clue on how to go about it. Maybe you write to the HOD, to the VC, or to the registrar and the like. So those are the ways we can come by to have a kind of a joint research as an entrepreneur with an institute, or let me say university, and be able to scale up and have something that is seems tangible apart or improve upon. So that's what I would suggest that is the best way to go about.
Thank you so much. I would like Victor to also react to this. because
Yeah.
of course Babatunde has done a lot of justice to it, but I want to also hear another perspective to the questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. I would say that yeah, for this to happen, I mean, he did make it off point. I would say a few things. I think first of all, it's a relationship, right? Like, I mean, we have to understand that for every relationship, there's two parties benefiting, you know. And if it's not a mutually beneficial relationship, it's not likely to happen. It's not likely to go forward, right? So that, you know, I find that for every relationship, you always have to find the motivation for the other party. You know, so yes, even for universities, yeah, they have their motivation. But yes, to answer the first part of the question, I think meticulous data collection is actually key. First of all, again, academia, they can't really work without proper data, right? And I think this is something that we really lack, you know, coming from where we come from. Again, even with some of my experience that I had before entering entrepreneurship, the level of data collection and quality is something that I struggle with sometimes. So data collection, you have to, because that's very key. The other thing is, yeah, in terms of conducting that research, right? Once you have the data collection and you see where the problem is, you have to go to universities that are interested in that problem, right? Because again, there needs to be that synergy of purpose. Yeah, there has to be that synergy of purpose. Then last but not least, how can the conversation start? I mean, I think he already made some, Babatunde already made some really solid points. But the other thing I have to say is that I think it takes a while, right? So this is not something that's going to happen in 1 month, in 3 months. In fact, one of the projects you know, that we're currently part of, that we're doing with a few universities, it took about 18 months of conversation, right, to set up the project, right? Because again, it is a process, and you know, again, there's different parts that need to be explored. So yeah, I think those are the other things I'll just add. Thank you. David, do you have any thoughts on that? It looks like the host is away for
looks
a minute.
like we have to fill in, right?
Hey, come on. Do you have any
I think
thoughts on that?
you and Babatunde have already actually put all the inputs in there. What I would just add, I can also see Chris said in the chats that university approach could be very, very slow. What I have seen, I spent a little bit more time also in research as well. During my PhD period, we were doing a couple of projects where we had sort of consortiums where we were working with, you know, universities around Europe, Asia, and also collaborating with Africa. So sort of working with a whole couple of, you know, institutions. Definitely very slow. But the key thing that I've learned from all these series of processes is that if we learn how to be professional and also touch people's interest, we are able to get their attention really, really quickly. So let's say if you are contacting a professor who has, you know, been doing research for a whole number of years, and you know, as you spend so much time in research and academia, you always try to narrow your research to a specific niche. So you definitely have to do your research very well to know the people that you're trying to approach. Let them know their role, clear role. And number two, let them also understand, you know, what they are going to benefit from it. In as much as they are far in research, they also want to know how it's going to benefit them, because at certain points they are looking for other, you know, recognitions and stuff like that, and contributions to specific projects. So you also have to really know these things and be professional about it. If you are not professional, sometimes people send very funny emails. People do not even know how to take their time and really write very nice and interesting proposals that will attract these people's attention. But aside that, aside institutions and universities of such, I think there are also research institutes who are not necessarily universities. So out of that scope, you could also try and pay attention to these people will be able to help you. Example, my company, we have our officer team that does research, and we are not a university or anything. We are just a private research institute, and we collaborate with a couple of companies around Africa to sort of work on research and collect data that is very relevant for people's initiatives. And there are a couple more institutes that do that. So number one, just be professional and let the people also know what their role is, specific role, and how they are also going to be benefiting from that project. That will maybe shorten the time, but that, of course, that's not a promise though. But anyways, it's a way to sort of help you on the way.
Thank you so much, David, for that. Can you hear me? Okay,
yes,
thank you.
Yes, we can hear you. So sorry, before we leave that question, from what David just changed now, something prompted up, and I had to share it. And at the same time, for an entrepreneur to fetch them, in order not to stress yourself, that sometimes you conduct your research on your own to get to have a kind of past research that has been conducted. I remember using that method to fetch out somebody from Edo State to assist in conducting our research. Through the paper that I was able to read online, the authors, definitely the name and the email will be there. So that's another way to fetch out who possibly the potential partners that can help you to leverage that capacity to have a joint research. So I fetched that person, I got the email. Thank God for me, the person responded, but it's no more in Nigeria. But at least he was able to give us a clue on how he was able to develop that machine. And at the end of the day, we are able to cope with the advice he gave us. So those are the ways we as an entrepreneur as well can do our own part in terms of, as David has said, and we can research on our own to get their contact. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Babatunde, for that. Like David said, we need to appeal to people's interests, and I really think that is very, very important. And I've also had costs to basically do some Googling to get some people in terms of areas of people who are interested in what I wanted to do. So yes, thank you, Babatunde, for that input as well. So the next tip we have is determine whether there are public or private data sets that can help you assess a product or market opportunity. Don't be afraid to ask experts. Now, the experts are in quotes now. The expert is in quotes. Now, you know that expert would mean all the different people that we've been talking about in this since this session started. So to ask experts for help to access or interpret data. So now the question, what platforms can African businesses access local data? Who and where can they run to? So I would like to start with Victor again. I'm sure that because of your background and because of the work you do, you would have had experience with accessing local data. So what would you say to this, Victor?
Yeah, this is very interesting because I think data is something very, very dear to me and important to me. I mean, my background and what I'm doing for a while. I've worked in various industries, even in the technology space, and I would say that data is missing. Data is missing. Local data is missing. Or let me rephrase that. They're in the hands of private individuals, private institutions. And so it's a bit difficult. But I will say that, again, if I'm referencing the previous slide, I think that the biggest expert is Google. Something I always try to emphasize to my staff or to my team is the fact that, for all intents and purposes, right, I'm just a chartered accountant. I didn't really go to, I haven't really done any proper education thing afterwards. But again, all the information you need to do whatever you want exists. It's there on Google to start off with. And even you have, clever tools like, ChatGPT that can help you understand things. So yes, I think first of all, there's a lack of data. There's always going to be that excuse, again, there's a lack of data. Let's just accept that, right? There's a lack of publicly available data, right? That's a fact. And then when you're also working in some, some, I would say less important or some underdeveloped industries, like waste management, like agriculture, it's even harder. Data is gold, it doesn't exist. However, the data that does exist, there is Google there. And I think if you take your time and learn how to read those reports, those reports that Babatunde also spoke about, they look bulky, they look, threatening, they are boring. I mean, I'm an accountant, but I had to learn how to read those reports because that's how you find the little bits and data, and that is where you want to. That is what there's no magic bullet anywhere. It is painstaking work to pull out the limited data that exists, and it's there on the internet.
Thank you so much. David, I'd like you to respond to this as well.
Yeah, the same drill. Data is not that much available when it comes to our community. And I know there are a couple of research institutes. I'll try and put some in the chat when I finish speaking on this, who are trying to collect data. They are getting sponsorships from other countries, other funding agencies to sort of gather data on different topics. With that said, I think that as a researcher or maybe a young entrepreneur who is coming up, there are two basic things that I would just say that you could use to gather data. One is through partnership, because Victor said that most of the data is in the hands of private institutions. So if you realize from people's websites that, hey, they've collected data or they have written reports on certain issues, there are a whole lot of data behind the reports. So one of the simplest things that you could do is engage with them, tell them about your work, proposal, like a well-drafted proposal showing your milestones and your goals and your objectives and stuff like that. Engage them and tell them why you're interested in something like that. Would they be interested in sort of giving you data for an exchange of maybe partnership or, something that they might be interested in? You could look at their social objectives and stuff like that to sort of attract their attention. A second thing that I would say is, aside partnership, is through as simple as a very simple survey, right? So recently we've seen that people are using these tools a lot. So if your research is focused on, let's say, a specific region or a specific niche, let's say you're working in Accra, and it's specifically based on maybe you're trying to convert maybe organic waste into, I don't know, something, a new material, or you're looking to convert upcycle plastic materials as a new initiative. How about you go to the market and ask them, the people, randomly about the things that they would like to see? Set a couple of questions. That is literally data collection, and you'll be surprised the quality information that you can get out of that. So as simple as a survey, well-structured questions, get someone to go through them. You can gather as much data as possible and know the people's needs, and then know sort of what their expectations are in terms of, impact, social impact, financial restrictions, or how much they are willing to pay for certain innovations and stuff like that. The people are there, and this is free source of data that you can sort of grasp from anywhere. But if you do have enough funding, of course, you could go the extra approach and the extra mile by sort of buying data from certain relevant platforms. But I'm still going to quickly share the links of these scientific-based organizations who are trying to gather data for the African regions on different topics.
Thank you so much. We are running behind schedule, so we'll move on to the next tip from here. So the next tip is identify researchers and institutions that have an interest in your market or product and develop relationships with them. The more you know about each other, the likelier it is that you can co-create innovation opportunities that can be funded through both enterprise development and research grants. I know that we've addressed this a little bit in the particular tip earlier, but Babatunde, I want you to react to this. So the question is this: how do I build relationships with relevant organizations in practical terms, and of course in the shortest way possible to convey it? So with the intention of collaboration that leads to funding or other forms of business growth. So Babatunde, please kindly react to this in a minute.
Thank you very much. Well, in building a relationship with relevant organization, as I've said earlier, for us in Nigeria, paperwork does not really have that intensity. The first things, from my own experience, still remain the fact that you still have to build a physical relationship, or let me say the word personal relationship, with persons that you have fetched that could be of help in you getting that collaboration. I write email, you didn't get a reply. If they have office, it will be better off to go to their office. But one thing that is very paramount and good these days is we are beginning to have incubation centers. We are beginning to have institutions like Circular Economy Innovation Partnership. We are beginning to have all those that are promoting entrepreneurship, so we can leverage their influence. That's where I'm going. For instance, now, if I have something to get, I know as a startup, I didn't have that visibility. I didn't have that name. I didn't have that. I didn't have that kind of structure. I didn't have that influence, but I can leverage the influence of CEIP now, coming to you, tell you my plight, tell you my challenge, because you are well known, and as such, they know what you do. So from that, I can easily make my intention known, of which from you, you can easily get that partnership or collaboration I wanted. So I will encourage every of our listeners, just take that advantage of leveraging the influence of people that are closer to you, of organizations that are closer to you. I know it's very easy for me to reach out to Climate Launchpad now to do my forecasting, my impact forecasting. If I couldn't reach them, I can go to NCIC, talk to them. I need these tools, and I can leverage their influence. So for me, summarily, I would say that is the opportunity are beginning to unfold now in Nigeria, and we should take advantage of it, building on the relationship of others to achieve or to reach out to others. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you so much. That was very succinct, and thank you for the honorable mention of CIP as well. The next tip is I'll take the two tips together, and then we look at the question. Build relationships with entrepreneurship programs and initiatives within universities to encourage students and faculty to explore partnerships to commercialize research. Then the next tip is offer internships and industry placements to students and researchers, providing them with practical experience and exposure to real-world challenges. Now, why are tips 2 and 3 important? Let me go back to tips 3, and then of course you have tip 2. David, I would like you to react to this. Why are these tips very important?
One of the challenges that we are finding right now in our education system is application. And I've been having this conversation a lot. I have a podcast where every week we connect with researchers and industrial players to sort of brainstorm on critical thinking and how we can convert our ideas into, real application. And it's really sad that whenever I see a big difference, and I'm sorry, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but when I speak to people who are sort of schooling within the continent and people who are schooling outside, you see the difference in critical thinking. And the idea is not the fact that we don't know, we know the theory, but how to convert it into application is a challenge. And this is super, super, super important. And at a university like Ashesi University in Ghana is actually doing this on a very high scale, which is super, super good. I'm so excited about this. So they have an entrepreneurship sector. Another university also in Rwanda, I forgot the name, but they are also doing a very similar thing like that, where they open up the students to internship, and it's compulsory for them to do that. And also students are also able to convert their thesis or their end of study projects into potential entrepreneurship or project or businesses, something like that. And this is super important for students to be able to connect, whatever they are studying into the real world activities. I always ask myself this question, that why are we having people writing theses every year? and we still have all our social challenges within the continent and different countries not being attended to. But if you go to the schools' libraries, all these ideas are lying down in the libraries. So why are we not able to convert them into real, solutions? And so this is what makes the 2 points super, super important. We need to bridge the gap, and we need to equip the students to start thinking, more of solutions than just, graduating and getting their certificates.
Thank you. I'd like Victor to also respond to these tips. Victor, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I think that David mentioned quite a few things on there, and I'll just add a couple. Especially for tip 3, the idea around commercializing research and integrating students as well. I think is very key in the success of places like Silicon Valley in California, for example. Right? It's all around. Again, students. You hear of all these dropouts from these universities. They were in universities before they dropped out, right? And this is the whole ecosystem, right? There's professors that have become billionaires, right, being in this space. And like I said earlier on, just generally, if you don't get anything from today, I think it's very important to understand people's motivations, right? Because if you understand motivations, then it's easy to incentivize, behaviors in that sense. I mean, before I was doing stuff in the circular economy, I did a lot of stuff in manufacturing, agricultural manufacturing especially. And I remember going to, some of the prominent universities in the Southwest. I had to go there in person to, see the documents or see the research for problems that I was facing. And this had been done years before, so a lot of these times the research exists, but the motivation to publish does not exist. And compared to some universities, or academia institutions on the other side of the world, where they have a publish or die policy, right? So again, in Europe, there's some, and in America, they have to keep on publishing. And so you understand that for some universities, they're incentivized to, again, build relationships. They're incentivized to commercialize research. And so I think the focus is on trying to form relationship with those universities, right? I mean, you're not going to go to university and going to start trying to get them to change their mindset. I mean, you're not the savior of the world, right? Focus on the ones that are already, already have that culture, right? Already trying to do stuff like that. And I think that's a lower hanging fruit because they already understand. They're already motivated for this to be a mutually beneficial relationship. And of course, then you involve the students, and it all helps the ecosystem because when the students come in as interns, potentially gives you, again, lower cost of labor. Also then gives you a way to potentially have someone that you want to employ full-time when they graduate. So again, it's also a good way to build your pipeline. Some of the better performing staff we've had have started from internships and to when they enter the organization. I think that's very important. But just last on this, I would add that I think again, when you're working with academia or trying to provide internships, it's very, very important to have the right structure, to onboard or to create or to leverage on this relationship, right? I mean, starting anything is easy. Sustaining it is where the issue is, right? So again, having the right structure for these things is really important. Yeah, that's all for me.
Thank you so much. It's quite interesting conversation that we've been having, and I'm sure that the people who are in the audience have learned so many things. I've personally learned a lot from our speakers today. And I think while I got caught off the other time, there were some questions I was going to react to. I think Chris asked 2 questions. I heard David responding to one of those questions. I don't know if the question has been responded to. Chris, can you signify if your questions have been addressed?
Yeah, I think so. I think David also raised the point that, it's really important to ensure that you do your homework first. Don't jump in feet first. Trevor, it's always easier if you marry somebody who's in the research side, so good on you, mate. But we really need to try and look at understanding and ensuring that what the universities want to get out of it is sometimes different to what a business wants to get out of it. So you've got to understand exactly what the requirements are. Internships are always great. It does give you the opportunity to really groom some people that could help your business. But I think also look into the science, technology, and innovation side of things. I think it's vitally important. Universities are having to become more reactive to looking at tying into the business opportunities. So my thanks to the speakers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you. David, do you want to react?
Yeah, Chris mentioned something I think is super important. Businesses and industry and academia, we all might be speaking English, but we literally speak totally different language. The priorities are different, and sometimes communicating between the two can be a little bit difficult. So if you are a researcher and you're trying to get into the industry with a business idea, or probably an independent researcher and you want to get the academia to partner with you, you have to really understand their priorities before you can be able to sort of dive into that. And I think, as Victor mentioned, you could start it really nice, a nice proposal and everything, but sustaining them is super, super difficult. You probably might not think that, as he's going to be in the office waiting for you all the time. Probably they're in the lab and they just come to the office, like 5 minutes in a day or something to just check up on emails and stuff like that. So it's super important to understand their priorities and speak a language that they could also understand. Moreover, understand that people in academia are so interested in publications and academia related success, or milestones. So when you're taking a project like that, also try and prioritize in that way so that they can be able to sort of give you their attention because they know they might get something beneficial from it.
I think you have a superpower. You can read minds, because the last tip is basically around what you just said. So we'll move to that top tip. So now the tip is that you should remind yourself that researchers and entrepreneurs are motivated by different things. These can be challenging, but can also be extremely rewarding for your business if you keep an open mind. So keeping an open mind is today's top tip. I'll let Victor react to this. David has already reacted to it because he has superpowers, and of course Babatunde as well. Victor, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, thanks. Well, to be fair, I think I've been saying this quite a few times today, in the sense that you need to understand what motivates individuals, right? Like, I actually didn't know this was the top tip, but yeah, I think this is just not even in business, in life. Dealing with your team members, dealing with your wife, your family members, you need to understand what makes them tick. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to proceed. I would just also touch on something Chris mentioned regarding the science and technology part. For me personally, this is the part that I'm experiencing more recently. I think, yes, that especially over in Africa, there is no data, right? There's lack of data, which makes it a very interesting proposition for researchers and academia, because again, this is the new frontier. So there is a lot of potential opportunities if you're able to align yourself with the right interest, as you were. Of course, it might take a while. A project I'm on right now that I mentioned earlier, it took 18 months of having 2 meetings every month for an hour. And, it was actually during this program that, by the way, I was just a passenger. There are about 2 universities in this consortium. There's some research institutions. And it was during this program that I was informed that there was a multi-million-pound grant, right? And I came in on board as part of the consortium, right? And because of that, the technology that's being developed is going to stay with us, because we are the company in there, right? So the point is, it is not instant. It takes a while. It takes effort. It takes hours, but it can be rewarding. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Very, very in a very short space. Babatunde, please react to that as well.
Thank you very much. They have said it all. One of the factors that is very important is for you to look out to what's that very thing that motivates the person you want to engage in.
it's more or less like a collaboration and partnership. So two cannot work together, as the Bible says, if I'm permitted, except they agree. So the first thing is to get to know, okay, these people are interested in what I carried. And as such, you decided to proceed and let the benefit be known to both. Don't try to be selfish. If you are not, then you can get your way around. This is what happened. This is what we are trying to do. This is what we are trying to achieve. And from there, I know it could be challenging, but so far you are able to let the other party know, and two of you come to compromise. I will say that, let me go into the world of intellectual property here. These are one of the factors that affected entrepreneurship and researcher relationship. Those are one of the factors. When it comes to the issue of IP, on which person's name, let's say we are inventing something new. Basically, you are a business, you're conducting your own research. Along the line, you discover I've had something that related to what you are working on. And now we are coming together. What happens? This is one of my experience. I turn waste paper into ceiling tiles, and we are trying to get a machine for it. I am the one that dwell much, know way how to in a local way. But I'm trying to get a machine for that work now. So we're at the junction like, okay, I have the concept. I'm the one working. I'm the one that tell you this will work, this will not work, because I've been part of it. You are the one, by virtue of being a material engineer and a mechanical engineer, coming to the team to determine how it will work in terms of technology and scientifically. You see, those are the points that are making the relationship between researchers and the entrepreneur to be difficult. But one thing I would say is, if both are open-minded, it's really helpful. And at the same time, we are having so many research entities coming up now. We may not be aware. In Nigeria, we have a federal parastatal that is called Incubation Center, National Incubation Center. Those are the places that entrepreneur can approach. Those are their primary assignments. You are entrepreneur, you have discovered something, you want it to be developed, maybe from ideation to prototype, or from prototype to having it as an MVP. They are there to help. But most times we don't have that information. So one thing I would say, we should be open-minded. Once you're open-minded, share it with people. You can be linked up with organizations that have been of help. So that's what I would say about that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Babatunde. My network is a little bit unstable, and we are very much behind schedule. Taking our closing remark from our speakers, I want to sincerely appreciate our panelists. Victor, thank you so much. Babatunde, thank you so much. David had to leave a moment ago because he has to go and attend to something else. Thank you so much to our panelists. And also, I want to thank our audience. Thank you so much for being a partner with us in this series. This is the fourth part of the series, and of course we still have 2 more to go, so please stay with us. I sent the link to follow our webinar series, the link to the website in the chat. Please, you can do well to follow us, register. You can pre-register for the upcoming sessions. And also, lastly, I want to thank our partners, the African Circular Economy Network. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining. I also want to thank Footprints Africa and Netherlands Embassy in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining. I'm sure that you've learned a thing or two. And for us in circular economy, one thing we believe in so much is in the fact that there is so much talk, but we need to action our talks. We need to walk our talk. So that means all these things that we've taken away from this room, we need to find a way to incorporate them into all the learnings that we've received from this particular room. We need to find a way to incorporate them into our businesses. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll end the meeting now. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Have a good day.